Hey everyone, Zandom here with another D&D Basics. This time I'm here with the Sorcerer. So let's get started with explaining what the Sorcerer is, what they can do, and what their general role is in a party. Now, Sorcerers are arcane casters like wizards. And I previously went over wizards, but they have some very key differences. Now, they do have a wider range of spells that they can learn. However, sorcerers know far fewer spells than wizards. Although, because of that, they don't have to really prepare spells every day. They just know all the spells that they know, and they know far less. They do, however, know far more cantrips. Not that that means too much. And sorcerers also can really modify their spells through meta magics. Let me give some examples of meta magics right now. For example, you could increase the range of spells with distant spell. You could get the effects of the sculpt spell from the evoker wizard with careful spell. You can get empowered spell, which lets you re-roll some damage die to get as much damage as possible. You could also get Twin Spell, which lets you cast a single target spell at 2 creatures, and so on and so forth. So in short, while the sorcerers really can't know and be as prepared as wizards when it comes to certain things, they're just better in general at being able to modify their spells and making them fit to nearly any situation. I don't know, it's more of a, do you want to know lots of spells, or do you want to know relatively few spells and be able to use them exceptionally well? That's the sorcerer, more or less. So let's get started. Now they're building a first level sorcerer. Now, the sorcerer, there's 3 main races that are good as a sorcerer. Starting off, and what I'm going to be building is the half-elf. Sorcerers have charisma-based spellcasting because their magic comes from their force of personality and their connection to their bloodline. So, charisma is their spellcasting ability. Half-elves get bonuses to charisma. Tieflings also get a good bonus to charisma. You could also play a dragonborn. They only get a +1 to charisma, but you could more or less build a feisty sorcerer with one of those who can actually go and hit things occasionally. And humans also work pretty well as sorcerers. You could also use the drow, but I don't really like using the drow because, well, their society is completely pretty much evil, and most drow are completely evil. So, let's get started. I will be building a half-elf, and to start off with the base stats, I will be using the standard stat array of 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. Now, you're going to want charisma to be your highest stat, because that's what all your spells are going to be based off of. But since it only goes up by a range of 2s, and having a 17 wouldn't make it any better than if you had a 16, I'll be putting the 14 in charisma. The +2 due to being a half-elf will make it into a 16. Very good. Now, next stat that I'm going to put it in is probably dexterity. Now, why dexterity? That's mostly just because, well, dexterity is useful. It increases your armor class, it gives you a bonus to acrobatics and sneaking. Dexterity is generally useful for any class. So I'll be putting my 15 into dexterity. Oh. And as a half-elf, you get a +1 to 2 of your ability scores. So I will be putting one of my +1s into dexterity to bring it up to another 16. So that's these 2 out of the way. Next is the 13. Now your 13, you could put it in Constitution, so you can make those concentration checks a bit easier. You could alternatively put it into wisdom, so you're going to have a bit more magical resistance and the like to mind control, and so on and so forth. And if you wanted, you could also put it into intelligence, so you have some of those knowledge skills if your party doesn't have a high int character. That could be useful. But I'm just going to put it in Constitution and put my other +1 in Constitution to bring it up to a 14. Now, as you can see, half-elves can get quite a few bonuses, because they get a +4 into stats, unlike literally every other race which gets +3s, or some of the Unearthed Arcana classes or races that only get a +2. Next, I will put my my +1, which is the 12, into Wisdom. This is assuming that you already have an intelligence-based person. Wisdom's always nice because it influences your perception and your medicine, as well as your insight, which is always useful. I'll put the 10 into intelligence, and finally my dump stat will be strength, because, well, you're a spellcaster, you're not really going to be running up and hitting things. So that ends up being a -1 in strength, a +3 in dex, a +2 to constitution, a 0 in intelligence, a +1 to wisdom, and a +3 to charisma. Now, this is a very strong stat line. You're getting a +3 to your armor class due to your dex. It's also really helpful with your dex saves. Your constitution will mean that you're going to be tankier than wizards, and you're going to be able to actually take a hit without losing your concentration spells. And your decent wisdom will mean that you're probably going to miss some things with perception, but you know, that's what you're going to do unless you're going to be doing a wisdom-based character. Now, moving on from there, let's move on to the half-elf racial bonuses. Now, as a half-elf, you get dark vision. Dark vision just means that you can see up to 60 feet in darkness as if it was dim light, and then 60 feet into dim light as if it was bright light. Yada yada yada. Most races have it, except for humans and dragonborn and halflings, I think. Next is Fae and Ancestry. No, I spelled that wrong. Ancestry. Fae Ancestry means that you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and you can't be magically put to sleep. So half-elves get a good bonus to a lot of mental magics. So charm person is going to have disadvantage on you, as well as many other things like dominate person, dominate monster, etc. It's a useful thing to have. Next, you get skill versatility. This means you get proficiency in not in two random skills. You gain proficiency in 2 skills of your choice. Pretty useful to round out a character. And next, you also learn the common language and Elvish as a half-elf. I will be determining the skill versatility skills later, but that is the bonuses of the half-elf. You don't really get a really strong feat-like ability like some other races, but you do get bonus skills, half of really the elf abilities, and a really good stat bump, so I like half-elves a lot because of that. Moving on from there, let's get straight into the sorcerers things. Now, as a sorcerer, you will be starting with 6 hit points plus your constitution modifier. That is up there for the worst starting hit points, up there with wizard. So, a good constitution is helpful. So instead of starting with 6, you will start with 8 hit points at first level. Now, whenever you level up, you will also be gaining a d6 plus your con modifier, or 4 plus your con modifier. I normally like to just give the straight value that it gets instead of rolling for hit points, because if you roll a 1, your players are kinda angry about it, but that's up to your DM. Alright, next is on to, let's see, your saving throws. Your saving throws that you're proficient in are Charisma and Constitution. Because you're proficient in Constitution, sorcerers are really good at making their concentration saves. So your concentration save, because your proficiency bonus is +2, will become a +4 instead. And your charisma saves, which, well, charisma saves don't come up that often, because really, I mean, the only thing I can think of that you have to make charisma saves against are Umber Hulks, but other than that, I can't really think of anything. Most of it's wisdom saves for mental resistances, but you never know. The charisma saves could come up at some point in the future, depending on what you're fighting or coming up against. Next, the skills. Now, as a sorcerer, you get proficiency in 2 skills from Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. Now, I'm going to be going off of this as the really, really charismatic sorcerer. So I'm going to put mine into, let's say, Persuasion. Proficiency in that. And how's about a bit into Insight to tell if people are lying or not. That tends to be pretty good, at least in a lot of campaigns with a lot of talking. Now this might be less useful in campaigns with less talking, but you know, it's what you gotta work with. Now, as my character background, this is going to be the charismatic shaman character. He's an outlander. And outlanders gain their proficiencies in athletics and survival. So let's see here. Now, the bonus in proficiency to athletics will help because you're going to get just a +1 instead of a -1, which, you know, it's good. Now, proficiency, of course, means that you're adding your proficiency bonus to it, and as you raise in level, it eventually will rise. Let's see here. So you get athletics and survival. Survival is more or less just foraging for food and the like, or being able to really find tracks and that sort of thing. So, could be useful if you're tracking down your big bad evil guy, or something like that. Now you get the skill versatility skills. So I think I'll put those into perception. Perception's always good, being able to spot traps and the like. And let's say stealth. Stealth is useful. So that means you'll get a +5 to stealth. You'll be a very sneaky sorcerer. You'll get a +3 into survival, a +3 to perception, a +5 to persuasion, and a +3 to insight. Now, for the rest of these, I'm just not going to fill them in, because if you look at this, say acrobatics, dex, that just means you add your dex bonus here to it. For wisdom, for animal handling, you would just add your wisdom bonus, and so on and so forth. Now then, after I got all the skills out of the way, let's move on to, let's say, spell casting. Now, your spell casting ability will be Charisma. Your spell save DC is equal to 8, plus your proficiency bonus, which is 2, so that's 10, plus your Charisma modifier, so that's 3, so that's 8 plus 2 plus 3, so it's 13. And your spell attack bonus is equal to your proficiency bonus plus your spell casting ability bonus, which is Charisma in this case. So that would be 2 plus 3, so you get a +5 to spell attacks. Now, as a sorcerer, like I said previously, you know a lot of cantrips. You get 4 cantrips to be precise, although you do only start with 2 spells known as the sorcerer. Now, the wizard starts with 6 spells. They're only able to have about half of those prepared at first level, but, well, the wizard just knows more initially, so you're going to be quite limited. Even in the higher levels, you're only going to know 15 spells, and you can't learn spells from spell scrolls and the like wizards do. But you do have 4 cantrips, so let's start with the cantrips. Now, something that's always good to have is good old classic Firebolt. Firebolt is just straight damage, hurl a bolt of fire. Fire damage is always good, and except for when you're fighting demons and devils and the like, and creatures with fire resistance. In those situations, it is also good to have Ray of Frost. Having 2 damage types means that you're less stuck, really, if there's a creature with fire resistance and you're out of spell slots. Well, you're dealing half damage with your fire bolts, might as well do another damage type. Ray of Frost deals slightly less, but you also slow creatures down with it. Now, I'd say that having 2 combat cantrips is really the most that I like to take, although you could take more, seeing as though you could get minor AoE with Acid Splash. You could also get some other things, like Shocking Grasp, but that's not really that useful unless you have a familiar. And really, Chill Touch is situational. It stops regeneration, and is really good for fighting undead, but really that's best in undead fighting campaigns. I'd say it's more or less better just to have straight fire damage, ice or cold damage. I don't know, that's generally what I like to have. Now next, a spell that I always like to take as a spellcaster, Mage Hand. Mage Hand lets you manipulate things from a distance, so for example, oh, there's a trap over there. Let me use my Mage Hand and press down on the pressure plate to make the poisonous darts spew out, and then all the poisonous darts are gone, so they can't shoot you. Things like that. Or, for example, if you can't manipulate something directly, you can just say, hey, Mage Hand, go and touch this magical artifact thing and see if it will incinerate me. Because, you know, if your Mage Hand gets incinerated, you can always conjure another one. Now, next spell that you could take is really up to you. You could take a defensive spell like Blade Ward, but I find that it's really not that useful unless you're just jumping in straight into the fray. You could also take Friends, which is just a minor charm person. It only lasts for a minute though, and makes people angry when you use it on them, so True Strike is pretty useful for starting off a battle, but you know, I don't like it that much. What I'm going to take, however, is Prestidigitation. Prestidigitation is just do something minor magical. Like, I create a shower of sparks, I warm a drink or something. It's a really fun RP spell. And I find that I like having RP spells for a lot of out-of-combat stuff, and it really makes your character feel magical. Because it's just like, oh yes, to entertain the children or something, I create a shower of sparks or something. Or to get on an NPC's good side, I offer them a nice cold beer. I mean, yeah, this beer is lukewarm, but I chill it with Prestidigitation. Or lukewarm cider or something, warm cider, something like that. I don't know, it's something fun to do with your really just a cantrip. Now, on to the main spells. As a first level sorcerer, you will know only 2 spells, unfortunately. You are quite limited in your spell knowing. Now, really, if you're going to from the first level spells, Mage Armor is probably something I would take. Mage armor is godlike, really. It just pretty much makes it so, hey, I'm wearing good medium armor now, even though you're not. And it lasts for 8 hours. It's non-concentration. Takes up one of your spell slots, but you know, whatever. And the next one I'm going to take is... you could go for a out-of-combat ability, but I'm just going to go with Chromatic Orb. Chromatic Orb is more or less just you hurl a 3d8 ball of energy that can deal, I believe, 6 different damage types, depending on what you want at the time. Gives you a good versatile, really, selection. So, for example, yes, this creature is fire resistance. Well, I throw cold damage, or I throw thunder damage, or I throw lightning damage, and really, it's just nice to have, I've found. Alternatively, you could take Detect Magic if no one else in your party already has it, because Detect Magic is amazing. You could also take Magic Missile, or if you wanted an out-of-combat ability, or just a CC ability or something of the like, Sleep is also really useful. But that's more or less it for spells, so... and my descriptions of why I would take these spells. Now, on from here, let's see here, your armor class. Your armor class, since sorcerers don't wear armor, will be 10 plus 3, so that's 13. Now, if you do use mage armor, it will increase your armor class to 16, because mage armor is, your armor class is now 13 plus dex. So you get up to 16. So sorcerer, really hard to hit. You're pretty much like a two-handed fighter at that point when you're wearing mage armor. Your initiative bonus is just your dex bonus, so it's plus 3. As a half-elf, your speed is 30 feet, or 6 tiles if you're doing it like that. Your hit die, sorcerers get a d6 hit die, and since you're first level, you'll start off with 1. And you have 1 out of 1 d6 hit die. Hit die, if you don't know, are more or less just, you use them during a short rest to recover a hit point equal to your die roll plus your constitution modifier. So you would get a die 6 plus 2 hit points for spending 1. Quite useful, really. Now let's move on to the sorcerer feats and traits. Now then, let's see here. Sorcerer feat and traits. You do not get font of magic. You don't get really any first level things. Except for your sorcerer's origins. Now there are some sorcerer's origins outside the main player handbook. You can look them up. There's the Storm Sorcerer, the Shadow Sorcerer, and so on and so forth. But since I'm just using the player's handbook, there is the Draconic Bloodline and the Wild Bloodline. Now, if you're trying to really make a min-maxy, really good combat character, Draconic Bloodline is good, as Draconic Bloodline just means, hey, you get more hit points, you get 1 hit point every level, or 1 extra hit point every level, and you gain really permanent mage armor. Because whenever you're not wearing armor, your AC is equal to 13 plus your dex modifier. This makes Draconic Bloodlines completely overpowered when compared to wild magic, in my opinion, because permanent mage armor, you're not going to have to spend a first level spell, at least at lower levels, and they end up getting damage resistance at higher levels, and it's just really kind of annoying to me that wild magic isn't better. But because I enjoy wild magic, I'm just going to go and pick Wild Magic Sorcerer. So, Wild Magic Sorcerer Origin. Now, because of this, you get Wild Magic Surge. This is when you cast a spell of first level or higher. Let's see here. You roll a die 20 on a 1. You roll on the random magic effect table. Now, the random magic effect table is on page 104. They can be anything as helpful as you cast a magic missile, a 5th level spell. That just means you get a ton of damage. Or it could be something like you summon some random creatures, or you get see invisibility. But it can also have terrible effects, like you cast a fireball centered on yourself, or you go and are frightened of the nearest creature for a turn or so, or it makes it so you can't speak for a minute, and that means you pretty much can't cast spells at that point. Or it can be random fun effects, like you're immune to being drunk for a couple of days, or your hair falls out for a day, or, yeah, you just get the point. It's amusing effects that can make a game, in my opinion, but it can also total party kill, especially at lower levels, because a first level party casting a fireball on themselves will literally kill everybody. So, I don't know, it's just, I enjoy Wild Magic Sorcerer because you roll the die, and it's fun. Next ability you get is Tides of Chaos. Tides of Chaos pretty much mean you gain advantage on 1 attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. You must take a long rest to recharge. Let's see here. After use, DM can decide if he wants to make you roll on the random magic effect table. Let's see here. So pretty much this means after you use this Tides of Chaos, which means you get advantage on 1 check, which can be pretty good. Every spell that you cast that is first level or higher, bam. It's just really, you have to roll on the chart and something random happens. Now that can be really fun, can be really good. You could one-shot some lower level bosses, or you could kill the party, like I previously said. But, you know, it's all in good fun. All in good fun indeed. Now, after this, I believe that is more or less everything about the Sorcerer. Yes, equipment. Of course, how could I forget? Well, that's mostly because Sorcerer doesn't have very much equipment. Now then, as an Outlander, let's see here. Oh, I almost forgot. Outlanders also get tool proficiencies in 1 musical instrument of their choice, 1 language of their choice, and so on and so forth. I will choose Draconic as the extra language as an Outlander, and I will say drums. Know how to play the drums. The Sorcerer who just war drums himself into battle and has some fun with random magic. Now, starting equipment. As an Outlander, you get a staff. This works as a quarterstaff. You can whack things with it. That would be bad, though, because your strength is terrible. And you don't have shillelagh. Now, you also get a hunting trap. That's just a bear trap, pretty much. if you wanted, I've seen this happen before, you pretty much take the bear trap and throw it on someone's face, and then they get bear trapped on their face. Yeah. Fun. Next is a trophy from an animal you killed. Let's say wolf pelt. Just wears it over his shoulders, makes him look shamanistic and stuff. You also get a set of traveler's clothes and 10 gold. Let's see here. 10 gold, not bad. You also get the Wanderer feature, which just means you get you can't get lost pretty much, and you can recall areas extremely well. Not that useful, but I mean, it could be useful if you're lost in the wilds. Now let's see here. The Sorcerer can start off with additionally, a light crossbow and 20 bolts, or a simple weapon. I'll just take the crossbow. Now, when would you ever use this light crossbow, you might ask? In a variety of situations. For example, if you're in an anti-magic field, for one. I know that's not that common, well, at least at lower levels, but it can happen. Crossbow could also be used because it's a lot quieter than shooting a bolt of fire or just a bolt of glowing energy at people. Really, it's better if you're trying to sneak. So, yeah. Next, you can take component pouch or an arcane focus. I like taking the arcane focus. You can flavor it to whatever you want for your character. Because this guy's a shaman, maybe he has like a small totem that he carries around. Or maybe it's like a scepter or something. Or maybe it's a stone knife that would break pretty much if you stab someone with it, but it's got like made of obsidian or something. You never know, it can be fun. Next you also get 2 daggers. And you also get a Dungeoneer's pack or an Explorer's pack. You can find those in the inventory section of the player's handbook. This is pretty much basic travel gear. I'll just take the Dungeoneer's pack. Yep. And that's more or less it for equipment, and really this is all you get as a first level sorcerer. It's not that much to start, but as you gain levels you get the sorcery points, which lets you augment your spells and the like. So, I don't know, give Sorcerer a try. If you've never played a Sorcerer, it can be fun. This is Zandom, and I hope you enjoyed. Please leave a like or a favorite if you enjoyed the video. And if you have any more questions or want to make a suggestion for one of my next videos, feel free to leave a comment.